adopt. MEDC doesn't require any specific process for it. So I would prefer this to be where if you have any questions, if you have any input, that would be wonderful, or how the product has turned out finally. This is one of the showcase documents that McKenna has put together. We have done lots of master plans, parks and rec, and any number, but this is our prototype RRC certification document, and we think it turned out really beautiful. We're very proud of it. So the first thing is the acknowledgements, of course, couldn't have been done without the help of the Board of Trustees, the Planning Commission, and all of the staff. The marketing plan has got its own table of contents. And this marketing plan was done in partnership with the MEDC. MEDC is the one that provided grant funding to the township in order to put together the certification program. The key sources of information, MEDC has got a template. When they say you have to come up with a marketing plan, they have a series of items that need to be actually included in the document that would constitute a master plan. And these various subtopics actually form the complete portion of the document. The first one was physical, cultural, and social assets. It's very important to know what we have in order to know what is missing and how we want to improve what we have. So the first step was to perform an asset audit to help the marketing team for the township actually know what our competitive advantage over our neighboring communities is. If we are trying to attract businesses of a certain type, we are trying to attract homes, residential development, or a demographic of a certain type, young professionals, what do we have that maybe another community that might be desirable to a developer doesn't have? How do we market ourselves? So you cannot figure that out till you actually do a complete audit asset. So when the audit of the physical assets of the township was done, the four main assets that stood out were Belleville Lake. Belleville Lake is centrally located. That is one of the biggest features of the community itself. The second one was Willow Run Airport. It ties the township to its aviation routes right from World War II. So Willow Run is very critical to identifying a part of our identity of the township itself. The Lower Huron Metro Park was identified as another vital physical asset. And finally, proximity to the freeways. We are in a lucky position where we actually have two major freeways. We have the I-275 corridor available to us. We have the I-94 corridor, one which connects north-south, another which does east-west. And that provides us with a distinct advantage over some communities which cannot attract industrial or other types of development that require quick and easy freeway access. We also have Michigan Avenue to our north, which would provide another way to get to I-94 west.
Before you get off of that one, I mean, it's not that big a deal, but it says a proximity to highway exits. Well, that's good, but I got to get back on. So I really think that should say highway exits and entrance.
Okay.
Not, and then at the bottom where it says Belleville, Van Buren, you don't see, I see the van and then you see the Van Buren. I think Van Buren ought to be the highlight because we're not Belleville.
Understood. We will change that. We will make Van Buren more prominent and Belleville. I believe Belleville was kept there as more of the lake,
Right.
Lake's identity, but I can see totally where it might look like Belleville is being highlighted rather than Van Buren. We will fix that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may just also say, these are word clouds. They're kind of an interesting public input tool, and sometimes they're going to capture whatever's the most prominent word. And of course, here in Van Buren Township, Belleville Lake is front and center, even though I've heard over the years maybe it could be called Van Buren Lake, but I know that's probably one of the reasons that showed up. And of course, the Belleville Museum. So that's probably why it's so big there.
And another one is Yankee Museum is no longer called the Yankee Air Force Museum. So that needs to be changed because they've changed that name. They no longer have the Yankee airplane there, so they changed their name.
Oh, I did not realize. What is it called now?
It's called Yankee, no, it's called.
The Michigan Flight Museum?
No, isn't it called Aviation Museum, and there's a couple other words.
Okay.
The point being that it's not the Yankee Air Force Museum anymore, right?
Right, it's not the, yeah.
Dan, I would really appreciate it if you could just, on the page number, write down the corrections I need to make so that
Definitely will.
we will get it all made and I don't miss any of the ones that are pointed out.
The planning commission too, would you, because this word cloud is, it's kind of a computer generated
Yeah.
just assembly of the most prominent words people say when they do public input, would you want that to just be stricken, or would you want it to be, have just kind of a explanatory caption that explains, you know, some of these words might be outdated or might be referencing something that's not specific to the township, or if it's just more clear, we could probably just strike that from the document. Really depends on your preference. But there's no way to go in and kind of alter the size of those or take words out without kind of removing the
So our
purpose.
design director is the one who works with word clouds. I'm not that tech savvy, so when she tried to explain, I'm like, okay. Dan probably understands what these word clouds are, but apparently it picks words of prominence. But I shall definitely talk to her and see if we can reduce the prominence of some of these words. And if it, Belleville still has to be in there because it's the lake's identity, but maybe we can do it slightly differently and see if there is some way to.
Yeah, we are a council, we are a trustee board rather than council. Council would be the city of Belleville, which is fine because it's part of us, but this is kind of our snapshot, so.
Maybe this word cloud will pull out a few words. If it's automatically throwing them in, maybe we might just take a few words out so it doesn't do that. So we came up with those assets based upon, in June 2023, we had a workshop over here. It was a public engagement workshop where all members of the public, the boards, participants, everybody was invited, and they were asked to write what they think are the physical assets, what are the social cultural assets, and what would they like to improve? Given a chance, if they felt something had to be improved, what it would. So the sticky pads gives us a good idea of what the general consensus on this is to obtain public input. This has been a very successful tool, this kind of public feedback, even in master plans, the Sumter Road Corridor Plan, sticky and the dot is like one of the most commonly used methods. When we spoke of audit of cultural and social assets, Yankee Air Museum, once again, I have to correct the name on this sheet also. So the Air Museum was one of the key social assets that drew people to here. The Willow Run Airport, simply because of its history from World War II. The fact that we are part of the Detroit region Aerotropolis, which gives us whole corridor, gives it a special attention, and downtown Belleville. Even though Belleville is small, it is integral part within the center of the township itself. That is also a draw for people to come over here for its restaurants and their core downtown area itself. Some of the pictures that actually capture what we consider as being the township's big assets. And this is the Detroit region Aerotropolis pictures. The next criteria that we considered as very important is, as in the case of trying to market anything, be it a product or an entity, you need to have a brand identity. And that is why branding is so important, be it a municipality, be it a product, be it an automotive vehicle. Brand identity is very important to create a strong presence. So only when you have a brand identity can you start actively marketing it. So the important part was to do an audit of where does the Van Buren Township brand stand right now, and where do we need to be. So what we started first is with the mission statement. A mission statement is, in 2019, the township adopted a style guide. That was the basis for deciding what the colors will be in our logo, what the typeface used will be, what will be the color of the ink used. Although at the time, the style, the mission statement was included in the style guide. And during the public input session, a lot of feedback was given stating that the mission statement in the 2019 style guide is incomplete. It's very short. It just says building a vibrant and sustainable future today. A lot of the feedback received was like, we really need to expand upon that if we are trying to market ourselves. So the proposed mission statement that we recommended was to build a vibrant and sustainable future for our residents, workers, businesses, and employers by strengthening community resources and cultivating innovation in manufacturing and mobility. Because these are keys to connect us to the future. The future is heading towards mobility. So this mission statement captures the essence of Van Buren Township. We care about our residents, we care about all the businesses, because together is what will make the community what it is. So that was one of the things that was recommended, an improvement in the mission statement itself. The use of the name was previously, sometimes it would be Van Buren Township, Township of Van Buren, Charter Township of Van Buren. The style guide actually clearly laid out in official documents and marketing documents what is the name that we need to be used. And it had an About Us section, how we would describe it. And this is what is currently in our marketing about describing what Van Buren Township is. Why Van Buren Township? This is currently in our style guide and our marketing materials, showing what Van Buren has to offer. It also talks about the writing style and the manner in which social media and any public documents are written. Words matter. So when anything comes from an official standpoint, either from the township board or from the commissions or from any of our marketing groups, the wording, the phraseology matters, and that's what this document is advocating. Yes, Sherry?
Can you go back one page? Where it says
Wait,
strength of community resources? Okay, the newly community center will be completed by fall. It was completed
It
by
was
the
just inaugurated.
spring of '24, not the fall of '24.
We shall correct it. Dan, you got that strikeout? Okay, thank you. Actually, I read it and it registered in my mind and then it just blipped off, so thank you.
Thank you.
I shall fix, it probably comes up in one another place with community center. I will fix it over there too.
Yeah,
Thank you for catching that.
It does, and that needs.
Right,
yeah.
I remember seeing it somewhere else, so.
Our Next Energy, can we just double check those figures?
Are we referring?
In cultivating innovation,
Okay,
the factory will produce electric vehicle batteries and create over 2,100 jobs, positioning the township as a leader in mobility, et cetera. If we can just confirm the 1.6 billion investment as well as the 2,100 jobs, because I know
Yes.
there's been a little bit of discussion about that.
yeah, that number came from originally when MEDC had told that to the township, but it would bear verification before we put it in the final document. So going further into the mission statement, we had like the writing style, which is important, and social media basics. Van Buren's logo was at the time finalized, what kind of logos we can use, what kinds of color we can use, and some suggestions. We had different boards where it said, do you love the Van Buren logo? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Do you have any suggestions for improvement? Whenever we received any feedback for improvement, that is what is represented over here with the bulb icon, saying those were the feedback. This is something that you can consider in the future should you choose to want to improve it. But at this time, the style guide, those portions of it, we believe really look good and represent the township well.
Mr. Chair, before
Once
we leave
again-
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
So I like, I'm a corporate person. I've worked in businesses. I've done logo rebrandings, all of that good stuff. I get what this is. I want to point out that the logos used in the document aren't print ready. Those are actually raster images in there and they don't look right. When you print it, when you put a logo into a document, you should use the raster art version so that as the document gets bigger and smaller, it prints out correctly. If you look at like the big icon logo at the bottom, I know it's picky, but marketing people are picky. You'll see that it's sort of got some weird white lines around it and that the logo text under the stacked logo is actually kind of hard to read. It's because the font is rendered with a slight outline that doesn't show up in a raster print. So just as a if we're going to make a document that talks
Understood.
about logo use guidelines, your marketing team would look at that and go, "Oh, no, not rasters in a print document."
Well, actually, we got this information from the township's marketing
Oh, then
team.
I have to go to them and say, "Don't put rasters in a
So-
print document."
We got it from the township's marketing
Yeah.
and communications group. Maybe I will have our design director tie in with them and see what is the correct format to put in so that it doesn't appear
so that
pixelated or
it
anything.
looks right and it doesn't appear pixelated.
Yes,
That's
I believe
exactly
she
right.
got their original document sourced from them and she put it in, but this is she told me the name of whatever the software is in which this document is designed. This is not a document that I can go in and edit.
Yeah.
All those edits will have to be made by our design director. This is not a Word, a PowerPoint, or any of the standard document types where you can. It's a special software that she has access to where she will go in and fix it. So I'm wondering if something got lost when she tried to move it from one template to
It's
another.
entirely possible, and it absolutely happens all the
Shall
time.
definitely-
But in a discussion of how to use the logo properly, that's,
Don't do this.
don't do
okay?
this.
Maybe this is a teachable moment. Commissioner Jar, do you know the format you described, is that TIFF or PNG, or do you know what would typically?
SVG.
Okay.
There are PDF versions, but not the raster format.
the
I can
typical
absolutely,
PNG
I'll
and-
tell you what, I'll get back to you on that one.
Typically, I've seen PNG used for logos even in university.
PNG is
but that's-
raster. It looks
Okay.
like that when you print it.
Oh,
The other
okay.
ones are,
TIFF,
you
okay.
know. We don't need to belabor the point. I'll send it to
It's
you in an
okay.
email.
If you had to answer off the cuff, I
Yeah.
would appreciate it. but
These
that's
are the type fonts and the colors that are in our style guide. The next part of the marketing plan was who is our target audience? What is the message we want to communicate? And what is the means of communication itself? What type of business sectors and people should Van Buren Township prioritize with its outreach efforts? This was once again one of the boards that we used when we did the public engagement session in June 2023. It's important when you're doing a marketing plan to know who is your target audience, because target audience and the demographic, that determines exactly what you're going to put in your document. So to understand that is very important, and these are some of the abbreviations that are used in the document. Instead of spelling it out each time, we just created a legend so you would know whom we are referring to. So the results of the workshop indicated that the top target audience should be prospective residents. More residents, we need more workers and entrepreneurs, those who are young professionals who want to come in here and create something in the township itself. That was the result from the workshop study that was done based on tabulating the dots that were presented. So deep diving into each one of these, the first one was prospective residents with a focus on young professionals. And the best way of communicating with young people these days is social media. It is Facebook, it's Instagram, it is TikTok. Those seem to have a far wider reach than anything in traditional print publications. With younger professionals, if it's digital, it gets seen. That's just the generation, that's the next generation. So that is the communication preference, and that's what is recommended be done from a marketing standpoint. When we are looking at prospective workers with a focus on young professionals, once again, we'll have to use social media such as LinkedIn. LinkedIn is now really popular, and anytime anybody wants to look up a professional, they typically go to LinkedIn and check what the professional affiliations and all are. And once again, the ability to be able to search. When you go into Google or you go into Microsoft Edge, the ability to go into that, the search engine needs to be optimized in order for Van Buren Township to prominently come up when such search is being done. And supporting local talent. That is key. You want to retain the talent within the community. You have some talented youngsters who might graduate from Belleville High School, who might have college. We need to be able to provide the kind of attractiveness in the community that they would want to make this their permanent home and not want to leave here. One of the other communities where I recently worked in, I won't say the name of the community, so we were doing master plan outreach, and we tried to do an outreach, a poll among young people in high school, like, given a chance once you're grown up, would you live in this community? Would you come back to it? So we polled about 100. I think 2 said they would live there, and 98 said no way, which was very, very sad. So we are like, okay, we need to do something about it. And then we asked them, why wouldn't you? And the ideas that they had for what would keep them in a community were so far remote, I would say, from our generation. So it was like, oh, yes, there is a generation gap over there. So, we really need to cover that to make it more attractive for them to want to live in the community. So the most impactful way to recruit new residents and workers is a marketing campaign. And one of the examples that is used in a case study quite often in planning is a small town called Quincy. This is located in Western Illinois, and they had so many jobs and they had no workers, nobody living over there. they spent significant amount of money in improving their infrastructure, in creating their own brand, in marketing themselves. They did billboard, print, TV, radio, and they tried to attract. I don't know how far they succeeded in all of it, but this is a very good example of how a community took the initiative to bring itself front and center. Before the kind of marketing program they embarked on, few people had heard of Quincy, Illinois. So they put themselves on the regional and on the Midwest map as a place where people can come, because this is a great place to be. We have good restaurants, we have good schools. So that was a good way to attract and bring new people to come in there. And with the cost of living increasing in most metro areas, when young people are looking where it is affordable or where can they go in order to establish themselves, it's good to provide the kind of marketing snapshot that this is a great place for you to come and live here. It would be worth your while. So when we are looking at entrepreneurs, these are the different key messages that came out of the workshop that we did. And once again, when we are trying to target them, it is search engine optimization and using digital social media to reach out to them. I was rather surprised based upon the information we got that TikTok was popular. I thought TikTok was only for silly videos. Apparently not. Apparently it's a very good marketing tool also, which caught me by surprise. I thought it was more of a teenager thing, but it's not. It's more of a young professional thing also.
Depends on who you're marketing to.
So target audience, if you're looking at existing residents, this is retaining young talent in our community that is already here. How would we reach out to them in order to help keep them in the community itself? And this table sort of summarizes what kind. It needs to be affordable. We need more walkable neighborhoods. We need high-speed internet, so you have the capability of working from home. You need to be digitally connected. You need to have great schools. You need to have public recreation facilities. And I think if you look at public recreation facilities, Van Buren's facilities are second to none. I mean, with our splash pad, our water park, now our community center, the facilities are just better than anything in any of the neighboring communities that we know of. Existing businesses, if we are targeting existing businesses and encouraging them to invest more in the community in order to create more jobs, the key messages: we have available a highly skilled workforce. We are near major regional manufacturers and employers. It's a business-friendly local government. These are the messages that we want to convey out there to existing businesses and manufacturing. If an existing company feels like it's so difficult to do business over here, they will just look for ways to move out. So if you want to retain them and you want to encourage them to invest more in your community to create new jobs, those are the key messages that we need to get across in our marketing plan. Existing businesses, the retail businesses that we have, the key message is our population is growing. Retail will not survive in a community unless it has population to support it. Whether they are banks or whether they are grocery stores. You look very surprised, both of you, Commissioner Cullen and
We
Johnson.
don't have that page.
We have that page, but the picture.
Yeah, the picture
Oh,
is
through the
different.
chair, I can explain that. That was a change that was made after print. I actually had the picture swapped, so it'd be a local business, so apologies for the updated page.
Wasn't accurately local business. I think we swapped it out yesterday. This was the picture. Okay, I forwarded it to the.
Mary
you
Jo, Mary Jo will be heartbroken. The local people.
So this is our key message.
Apologize, that might have been an error on my part, so we can put that back in if, yeah, if
Oh,
that's
yeah,
helpful.
that's Mary.
That might have been the library. Was that the
Is that
library?
Cutting of the
That's-
library?
That's Jim Morgan, this
Yeah.
one-time supervisor of Van Buren, or Sumter, and then Maxley Joe from the library.
Yeah.
Yes, I apologize, that was my oversight. I did not immediately recognize that, so we'll get that back, placed back in.
Well, yeah, maybe
But
it's
they-
not retail. Dan,
It
I
may
don't know.
not be businesses from Van Buren Township.
The Planning Commission be amenable to 2 pictures on that page, potentially.
I want to make sure it doesn't shift any of the formatting, but we would like to represent a local business if you're talking about existing businesses.
that's a
Even,
good
even
idea,
if the
yes.
individuals in the other picture are local, it should be a local business. So
Business.
Yes, so we have key messages on, we have population growth, we have stability, what our median household income is. We are once again business friendly. And I think this is already on display. The amount of businesses we have gotten here over the years, you've gotten Menards, just the Belleville Road corridor, the effort put in by the DDA to market it and attract new businesses. It's proof in itself when we go down there. So many businesses have invested, existing businesses, in upgrading their facades. Businesses do not invest in existing businesses. Companies do not invest in existing businesses actively unless they feel that there is potential for growth. So we are already well on their way to further promote ourselves. These are some of the keys. When we are looking at target audience, we are looking at manufacturing. We are trying to attract the big corporations, and we are trying to tell them what does Van Buren have. The key messages would be, energy costs, available land, highway accessibility. When I go to available land further down, we will discuss a few of the prominent redevelopment sites which would be suitable for such industries or larger scale plans. So based upon all of the input that was received at the public engagement session, we came up with a few high-level comments, and we had goals. We created goals based upon them. For example, the first one was reach out to existing and prospective employers and understand who needs more employees and make sure the website and job post features answer to the elements listed in the target messaging column. The first conversation could be with Our Next Energy. So the reason we say that is the Planning Commission remembers Our Next Energy has gotten approval for only phase 1 of their project, and they intend to have 4 full phases to occupy the entire 650,000 square foot building. That is a lot of new jobs, and that's what they had told, which Commissioner Paul had referred to previously. It said 2,100 jobs. They haven't created that much jobs yet, only a small fraction of it. So the rest of the jobs are to come, and this is how we would like to recruit prospective workers, if those kind of manufacturing jobs are the higher paid manufacturing jobs. So you want to be able to attract talent and prospective workers to be able to work in those industries. So we created, based upon the feedback received, some statement, and then we created goals on how that can be accomplished. When we talk about industry or attracting the bigger businesses, you have to identify sites. I mean, you can tell an industry to come over here, but then they're going to ask you, what do you have to offer us? Where can we go in? And that is one of the key components of the RRC certifications marketing plan. You must identify priority redevelopment sites. We had multiple redevelopment sites identified during our public engagement session, and we picked the top 3 to feature in the document over here. A summary of all the sites is provided later in the document, but the top 3 were the Lakewood Shopping Center. So this acts as a great marketing pamphlet when you're trying to advertise the site. This site is 19.42 acres. That is a big parcel of land. It is located right off a major freeway. It has got easy access. It is a potential site for brownfield tax increment financing. That is a big deal to get extra financing and dollars. This site still has businesses in it, but all of you have been here for so long, you know over a period of time this shopping center has declined. It has steadily declined. Businesses have moved out, but newer businesses have not come in and invested to prop it up. It is an aging shopping center. And once it ages, you're not going to get new tenants because there are more fancier facilities available. They're not going to come and occupy a building that looks worn and tired. So this might be a good key redevelopment piece. This could, in the future land use plan map, it is currently zoned as C1, General Business District. In our future land use plan map, we have it as mixed use. And the mixed use designation is because of its interesting location at the junction of the freeway and a major thoroughfare within the township itself. And some of the ideas for redevelopment would be recreation and entertainment sports complex like Topgolf. Topgolf is actively expanding, and it brings in significant amount of revenue into a community because they have entertainment. Canton has just approved a Topgolf facility. It is located between Ford Road and Warren Road, west of Lots. It's right off I-275 freeway. And it is a huge complex. It's got 2 restaurants right on Ford Road. Behind it is multi-story hotel, and beyond it is Top Golf. And it is an entertainment venue which will attract people from the regional area, not merely from Canton alone. So that kind of site that has got easy access, that site was prime and very desirable for companies like Top Golf because right off the freeway, it's right off I-275. Although Ford Road traffic is not something most people would love to navigate at that end, it's still a prime site. And for us, this site has got very good access. It's got very good access. It's got significant amount of land. So if you build something like Dave and Buster's or an entertainment recreation, it not only serves, it provides retail, it provides food service places because most of those places do have integral food service in it. It provides entertainment. It provides somewhere where young people would want to go, and also keeps people in the community. If people are going to spend their dollars, you're giving them a place to spend the dollars within the community itself and contribute to the tax revenues. This was identified as, so when we are marketing the township and actively, this can be identified as this was identified as one of the priority redevelopment sites. The second priority redevelopment site was Fordland, right across from Township Hall. This is a huge parcel. It has got 181 acres. The current zoning is split between office technology and C2, which is extensive highway business. It has also located a good portion of it within the Belleville Road Overlay District with its own design requirements. The future land use designation for this, some of it is parks and open space, some of it is the town center core. It is very important when you market it that you also say what are the pros of the site and what are the cons of the site. The redevelopment challenges is the site has got massive amount of wetlands on it.
Isn't the southeast corner of that actually owned by the township?
All of it.
All of it is owned by the township.
Okay.
The entire parcel is
Okay.
owned by the township. The southeast corner is what is, the township visualizes it as more of a retail, mixed-use, commercial core, town core, because that heads straight into our downtown area down on Belleville Road. So it is hoped that in that corner, we would have that kind of development. And as you move back, it will transition into mixed-use residential. And the rear portion, which is all significant amount of wetlands, all of this is wetlands, most of it regulated by Eagle. That can be developed as an amenity with trails and keep it as permanent open space. So it needs to be marketed as such. In terms of financial support for developing it, we have the DDA tax authority, you have the TIF district over here, and also there is a specific financial support called Michigan's Public Spaces and Community Spaces. That is an entity that provides grants for redevelopment of places such as this. So idea for development of this would be walkable mixed-use district with residential, retail, and or medical office uses and lots of green space to mitigate potential wetland impact. Some of the wetlands will be impacted when this parcel is developed. So as part of wetland mitigation, you can create trails and additional plants. Because the parcel is so large, this might be something desirable to multiple developers, each one specializing in a particular component. So having a planned idea for this corner is a good idea to be able to market it and get people to come in. If a developer or developers know there is a vision for this area, the township has a clear idea what they would like to see in this area, as is shown for ideas of development and the site challenges, it makes it that much easier for them to say, okay, this is a property we can work with, and this is what we can propose to the township. It gets the conversation started in terms of they can approach the township first with a concept plan. This is what we are thinking. So, yes.
The calling it Fordland, that's because it's just sort of traditionally in our
Yes.
processes, it's always been sort of casually referred to as, oh, that's the old Fordland, right?
Yes.
Yes. On the next page, they're named after their sizes, are they not? The 440 and 390 properties are named after their acreages. I think that if it, for a marketing plan for someone looking at this who isn't here, doesn't know the history of the parcel, having a consistent naming scheme for these pieces of land would probably help them understand. You might look at this and go, oh, I really like that 181 acre parcel, but I don't want to have to talk to Ford about it. Right? Where if you look at it as a 440 and 390, it might be, it doesn't have the implication of, who owns it. There's no way to mistake it, you see.
That is a good point. The Ford land could probably use a renaming. In this case, these two addresses, it is part of the Erythropolis area. So these two addresses are fixed. Those properties are identified. I'm sorry, Dan, I'm blanking out on the entity that just now bought it and that has ownership control over 440 and 390.
Still being I'm not sure if that's completed, but it is something the Aerotropolis closely monitors, yeah.
Yeah, Aerotropolis monitors it, so they have been marketing it actively as 440 and 390. So maybe we can have something similar for the
In a
Ford
marketing
Land.
plan, consistency
I can
is
see
a-
how
is a
Ford
virtue.
Land might give the impression that, oh, we have got to talk to Ford, we don't want to get
If
into that.
if it had been called parcel 180, it's 181 acres, then you would look at it and go, oh, I see what the naming scheme is.
Yes.
For the Ford land, are you suggesting that the township should do a conceptual study of how the land might be used as a marketing tool?
That is something we are currently working on. In fact, that is a recent MISHDA grant, Michigan Housing Development Authority, recently granted the township $45,000 to do a study. It is technically a housing grant, but the grant is broad enough that this is one of the sites that we are proposing to investigate and come up with concept plans, because that will tie into the missing middle housing segment. We don't have that middle group housing, and the site might be one of those that is ideal to transition from commercial at the corner to the missing middle houses to the wetland mitigation and preservation area.
Even though it's conceptual in nature, since it's a planning and building related issue, does that mean it comes before us for review?
Concept, the MISHDA grant,
Or the concept plan that's developed from it?
the concept plan will be just that. It does
I
not
know.
require planning commission approval, but it will be part of the MISHDA grant study, which will come before you. It will be presented
Will,
to you.
the bottom line is it will?
Yes.
Okay. For review and input, right?
Yes.
Recommendation.
You're not
adoption.
approving the plan, you are providing input and feedback on whether you think that's a good way to market that.
Very curious.
One of the outcomes of that plan, if I may, is going to be potential zoning ordinance recommendations
Yes.
to respond to some of the housing study that's been done. as
If we
part of
have
this
an
plan.
ideal vision for that area, we come up with a concept plan, that is what the township wants to see. That will require us to fix some of our zoning regulations in order to make that missing middle housing happen. So we do have a scope of work. We are still working with Dan and Ron on finalizing the scope. So once the RRC is over, we will move on to the MISHDA grant study. So the Ford Land features very prominently in it. And because the township owns it, we have more independence to actually explore the property in its entirety and come up with a design for it.
Yeah, and the thoughts that I had is that as opposed to just zooming in on the site, which it's easy to do, right, as boundaries, obviously you'll be looking at how that impacts the whole township holistically.
Yes, yes,
Wetlands, you know, and the nice thing about, I think one of the drawing factors for Buren Township is we still have a lot of naturalized areas.
yes.
You know, you see a lot of wildlife that if you're not careful, you're going to move out of the area that people are used to seeing. And I mean,
Understood.
we've got an abundance of turkeys and deer, and we actually have coyotes, even though people want to chase them away. But I mean, we have a lot of natural features that would be nice to somehow tie together. and
Yes, open
maintain.
space preservation is a key part of the Ford Land parcel itself. Open space preservation would be key component of it. And so that, when the MISHDA study is done, it will not merely have just this property. The Ford Land design is one component of it. We are going to do an analysis of all the housing needs in the community. There has to be an assessment of what type of housing we have, how much we have, what is the market need, what is the market demand, what is the market availability. All of that will be done as part of that study. The scope is pretty extensive. We are still trying to iron it out and get it into a proper format. Yes, Commissioner Cullen.
In middle housing, what are we looking at cost-wise of the house? What dollar values of the house constitute the middle housing?
It's difficult to put a number on it. If you recollect, a few years ago, they used to keep saying affordable housing. The term affordable no longer applies, because what might be affordable in one community might be what might be affordable in Chicago suburb is completely unaffordable over here. So affordable is a very loose term. So in planning parlance, affordable is no longer used. They changed it to attainable housing. Attainable housing is driven by market conditions. So it is a product of what the income, median income of the people. A person earning 100,000, for them, a house of a certain value will be attainable. But somebody who is earning 50,000, the same house is not going to be attainable. It is a product of your income and where you live, the cost of living. So basically, when we say attainable, it's got your income and the cost of living, the area where you live, all that factored in. We don't have that number yet, but probably when we do the study, we might get a ballpark idea of what we are looking at. But as you know, in the last 2-3 years, the cost of housing in Van Buren has also gone up.
Can I sort of tag
Super
onto
high.
that real quick? I know that you stated the median income for this area is 91,000. So how did,
That was the average.
right, the average, but so, I mean, is it going to be geared toward that, or is it, do you know a range of incomes that it might identify?
No, I would not have the answer to that
Okay.
till I.
Because it's going to have to be somewhere in there though, right?
Yep.
Somewhere below that and into
My
it.
feedback with regard to the marketing plan and the economic development project with regard to the missing middle housing is that it still isn't 100, I don't want to speak for my peers. Maybe everybody else gets it. I don't know exactly what that means. And if I can't explain it to my township board in terms that I feel confident, I'm saying this is exactly what we're advocating for. I worry that maybe the communication isn't happening between this plan and the reader. Since I'm only one reader, maybe I'm only the one guy who doesn't understand it, but maybe not. And when we look at, we've never seen the histogram of what's the housing distribution in the township and what's the cost. It makes it very hard for me to say, yeah, that's great, let's go build that missing middle housing when I don't know quite yet what it is.
Housing is not required to be an integral component for your RRC certification.
Okay.
The RRC certification is about how you market yourself to all ranges of people, all ranges of stakeholders, same with the economic development strategy. The housing is a small component of it. It is not a deep dive, which is what the MISHTA will be. And just as a brief description, missing middle basically refers to a housing type that is between apartment type of living and between single family living. You're talking about duplexes, quadruplexes, triplexes, multiplexes, but for ownership. We are not talking about it being rental apartments. That is
So you're
that is
talking
affordable.
about owner occupied, but
Yes.
duplex, quadplex,
Yes.
triplex structures, but I don't know how
Higher
many we
density, smaller
get it. So
spaces.
I get it, but I don't understand how
But-
many we have in the township.
I was going to say, but the other component of that is, because you're saying attainable, it's a relative to the location, which is relative to the median or income range that's within that area. So that's why it's hard to pinpoint. That's why I asked the question of, it's outlined in here what it is, so we should be able to identify what that range is, right? And what the cost would be, where it should go, that sort of thing.
We will be doing that, but not as part of the RRC certification plan. But yes.
I can also just speak to the metric that has been used in the past for defining the term affordable and now attainable. There's a metric that's used for funding that's 120% of average median income for a geographic area. I don't know currently what that area is in reference to, but that's
Yeah.
something we'll look at. But it is that concept of taking an average of an area and making housing that's
And SUMCOG
accessible and-
has data tables that describe things like the value of the house versus the income of the person who owns the house. And it can express it in a table of multipliers from, below 2 up to above 4. And that data is available for the township, and I think that does kind of show that we have a housing gap somewhere in there, but I am not good enough at that kind of data
that-
crunching to tell you what that is.
It's the gap that the MISHTA study will identify. It'll identify what is the current housing stock in the township, how many homes we have in the different categories, what is missing, what is the dollar value range of housing that is not available that will cater to the demographics we are discussing over
And that's
here.
different from the architectural type too, right?
Yes,
I mean, because
very
when
much
you're,
so.
say, you just described the missing middle as actually an architectural quality, it's attached housing.
Right.
And that maybe we don't have a lot of attached single owner, single occupancy housing in the township. I don't know, but that's different from what the house is actually worth, right?
Right, and also housing types have differed. There used to be a time when it was all about having large yards and huge homes. Now the move is towards spending more time, younger professionals, based upon my experience, at least in the last couple of years doing many of these master plan and engagement sessions, the move is more towards younger people wanting to spend more time going to businesses, active recreation, hiking, moving, than spending their time and money taking care of large yards and homes. They would prefer to live in small, compact, low-maintenance homes and spend their time and money living.
Until they have
Outside.
a family with kids.
Yeah.
That's actually described in the economic
Yeah,
development
because it's-
section under the
it tends to- it
PSSRI pages.
It tends to be a transitional
read it.
type housing.
Move on. It is a pretty big document, so if I might just, the next part is any strategic plan that you have, you need to have goals, object. How are you going to implement it? A plan is no good if it's just a paper copy that's going to be sitting on a desk. So that's where we come to the goals and the action plan. Now, goals are basically broader, tangible statements of where we want to be or what the desired outcome is. Objectives are the actual actions we'll be taking in order to help get there. Is this sheet missing?
No, I was wondering, properties 440 and 390, where are those located?
Oh, those are located actually here. This is Ecorse Road. That is Ecorse Road. That is the Van Born Railroad.
On the top, okay.
The
And-
challenge with this is lots of wetlands on them. In the northern portion of the township, we have massive sewer capacity infrastructure issues. We do not have sewer capacity over there. So from a resident, developing it for residential is going to be very, very challenging because we don't have sewer capacity. Also, portions of that property is located along Willow Run's flight path, which makes its development challenging. So it's got some limitations to it. Its current zoning is M2. Future land use recommends light industrial for it. So it is a challenging parcel. Any development of it will have to be a little bit creative because it's got some limitations innate to it. And it's a huge parcel too. It's 440 is 438 acres and 390 is
390,
390 acres.
roughly.
Imagine that. So the goal from a marketing standpoint is to continue to build on the township's brand. As I mentioned, goals are big statements of where we want to be, what the desired outcome is, and objectives are the steps we shall take in getting there. So we have how we are going to get to build on the township's brand. And ABC classifies A is high priority task, B is medium priority, C is a low priority task. And then the indicator helps us track. Has this been completed? Have we done it? Have we not done it? And if we believe what we have currently is good enough, then we would mark the task as complete. So this, the first goal. The second
Before-
goal, yes.
Before you leave that page, just as a clerical, that's where the Yankee Air Museum,
Again,
in the last paragraph, is mentioned again. The very,
okay, got it there.
yeah,
Dan page. I will search for Yankee Air Museum and fix it once I find out what its new name is.
okay.
Actually, somebody I was talking to at my son's grad party this weekend said, "Oh, I visited the Air Museum in Van Buren," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, the Yankee Air Museum." They're like, "That's not what it's called." I'm like, "Well, that's what it is called." Because I was wrong. I was like, "Oh, oops." Oops, you were correct. The second goal is to create a message for targeting audiences. We spoke about our target audience, whether it's young professionals or entrepreneurs or businesses. So we need to identify what kind of message we will do and a marketing campaign, how we are going to market ourselves. The third one is to encourage local engagement opportunities, including City of Belleville. And I think the township has done great. You recently had a joint meeting with the City of Belleville and Sumter Township. It's very good to know what your neighboring municipalities are doing and to also update them on what you are doing. After all, we all work as cohesive units. We all border upon each other. What happens in Belleville will impact the township and vice versa. Same with whatever we do on the Sumter Road corridor is going to have an influence on Sumter Road Township down there. So we are already well on our way to, partnering and trying to discuss joint committees and keeping each other updated of it. And also, once again, maintain an active social media presence. And that is something that is handled by the communications department at the township itself. The fourth goal that was identified was to attract residents, workers, and entrepreneurs with a focus on young professionals. I'm sure you must have read lots of articles in pretty much any big publication. We have an aging population. We have a lot of seniors now. And that's why senior housing, which was not even heard of a few years ago, now we have so many types. We have independent senior living, assisted, memory care, Alzheimer's, and there is more and more a need for senior living. So you don't want the entire population of a community to age and not have young people in there. Young people are the ones who are going to work in your businesses, in the Menards, in the fast food restaurants. You need people to work in those. So we need to make sure that we not only attract residents, we also attract young workers and also entrepreneurs, people who would like to continue to invest. And the objective of how we are going to do it, what is the strategy we need to do, and what is a priority, high priority versus what is a medium priority is identified. And that continues in terms of attracting young population. We have more objectives, a lot of it, how we are going to go about doing it. Goal 5 was to develop or redevelop priority sites. So the 3 properties are listed, and Fordland, once again, probably rename that property for marketing purposes with a better address, or just as 181 like the other 2. So we will, and then we have like, what is the strategy? How are we going to do it? And that will get tied into the next project that we are going to work on, the MISHTA study. Improve our assets. How do we improve our assets? I mean, we are already well on our way to having parks, trails, natural resources. Overwhelming number of participants in the public engagement wanted a dog park in the township. I think thanks to the pandemic, pet ownership is at an all-time high. Lots of people have pets, and pets definitely are fabulous. I have a princess too. So lots of people put in Post-its that they wanted a dog park in the community. So that is something the township might want to investigate. It is labeled as C. It is not a high priority towards marketing township, but something that the current residents and future residents might desire. Also beautify the township, which we are already doing through public art and all of our the parks, how we are improving it. We are, the welcome sign that we have for Van Buren Township, all those go towards beautification. And improve cultural opportunities, same by coordinating with your neighboring communities and incorporating. Belleville Lake is incorporated into Van Buren's identity through our logo of the sailboat. Some way, if we could incorporate aviation into our logo or some part of it, that would complete our identity. That is something that we got in our marketing when we were talking about branding. It is an idea. If we want to pay homage to our aviation history in the township, that is something to be considered. Tracking progress. We can have all the plans, but if we are like, well, what did we do? What did we not do? One of the required components by MEDC is your marketing plan must have an action plan, and it must have a way to track progress. So in order to track progress, you need to have somebody in charge of it. And to monitor the progress, you have to assign a leader. It can either be a department can be in charge, so you're not just putting it on one person, or there can be a key person who would sort of spearhead the implementation of the plan, and then provide annual updates on how progress has been made towards this. And this is basically a worksheet. This is a usable worksheet included. This can be used as part of the document. This can be used even by planning commissioners. Whenever anything is done, if it's completed annually, you can say 2024 completed or for 2025. So this will help you keep track of your progress for each one of the goals that you have done. And I think as you tick mark stuff off to say, okay, this is done, it also gives a sense of accomplishment. You're moving towards making yourself a better community.
Ms. Kirshner?
Yes.
Is the annual update required by MISHTA?
No, it is not.
Only comment on that is that with tasks that have a time frame of 1 year, a year and a half, and then 2 years, having an annual update probably isn't a good recipe for ensuring the success of those projects. It doesn't give you enough time to assess them properly and do a mid-flight course correction in case you need to do anything. I'd really recommend, if we want to do this and take it seriously, that quarterly updates would be a much better idea if we want to ensure the success of the goals.
Okay, because some of the goals might be quite easy to accomplish, so they can be done in a shorter time frame versus others which are going to be really long-term.
Showing continuous progress and process is always
So you
better
can show
than
every
waiting till the
quarter
end.
something has been done
If you
towards.
find out at your
what's it?
yearly job review that you haven't doing a good job for a year, that could be very uncomfortable. Much better to have continuous process.
Annual
improvement.
performance review shall not go well. Okay, got it, got it.
Just feedback.
That was the marketing plan component of the RRC certification. So the next part of it is the economic development strategy. And the economic development strategy is not the same as a marketing plan, although sometimes this people may get confused saying, okay, so what's going to be the difference between things? The purpose of the economic development strategy is to create an action plan that addresses challenges and opportunities purely for economic development, retention, and growth. Marketing was about how we brand ourselves, what are our assets, what makes us attractive to residents, businesses, and entrepreneurs, and what can we do to improve that, and what can we do to make ourselves stand out there and shine. Economic development is to identify what are the challenges economically we are facing, how do we keep the businesses we already have, and what can we do in order to help grow it. So MEDC's RRC Economic Development Strategy Guide has got specifics of what you need to include in your economic development strategy. And this is a list of what must be included. Some of these do overlap on your marketing plan, such as the redevelopment sites, but this is a more in-depth. In case of the marketing plan, we highlighted only the top 3 redevelopment sites. This basically provides a summary of all the redevelopment sites that were identified in the township. The economic development strategy plan also first delves into what is the community context in terms of, it says economically, where does Van Buren Township stand? Not merely where does it stand from a design standpoint or being attractive. So in terms of a regional context, one of the key factors which we have heard from business owners and businesses that are over here, Van Buren is halfway between Detroit and Ann Arbor. It's like the key midpoint place. The cons, as we discussed, is quite often the identity gets blurred with Belleville. People say, oh, I'm going to Belleville. This is not Belleville. Belleville is small within Van Buren Township. So creation of the unique identity, that ties our economic development strategy will be successful if we create our identity so strong that it does not get blurred with Belleville's quite often. So in terms, the 5 economic development support organizations that are actually prominent in this area, of course, the first is SEMCOG, which provides us with all the data, background, demographics, the median incomes, education levels, all of those. Then the Detroit Regional Partnership. Basically, it is a sort of no-cost assistance that investigates 11-county Detroit region to promote this area. The Wayne County Economic Development Group. We have the Detroit Region Erythropolis, of which Van Buren Township is a part, and then we have the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber. With the support of these organizations, it helps us develop our economic development strategy really well, because there is support if we are trying to grow economically. This map sort of gives a regional context of where we are in the state. If we have all of Wayne County, and we are on Western Wayne County, bordering on it, it shows where we are actually located and where we are in terms of context related to the city of Detroit. Because when people say, yes, Sherry.
This was just another thought, didn't mean to interrupt it, but on the page before that, it talks about 30,000 residents in Van Buren Township. But in another place in this report, it said it was 29. I don't know how accurate you want or whether they should tie in or not, but
Good point. I will.
there's 2 different numbers for the population.
Okay, we
And I
should be
think
consistent.
30,000 is more correct than the 29.
And
We should be able to pull up the census, at least the raw data updates from 2022. There was one census update, raw data released in 2022. We'll try to pull out the numbers from that and use it over there.
I'd also suggest double-checking that you're using averages and medians when you're using your numbers, and probably medians are better. Averages are always a little bit of a red flag when I'm reading a document like this, and the numbers are not the same, the average and the median.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you know that, I'm sorry. I
Yes.
just-
I'm not going to make the trapezoid mistake again, right? In math, I'm not going to make that mistake. So this is the regional context map that is in here. In terms of a local context, it's a community. Van Buren Township is a premier community. We have marketed ourselves that way, and I think we have established our identity. quite well. So this basically is a summary of what the township's main thing is. Once again, as Commissioner Paul had pointed out, we will verify once 2,100 jobs and the investment amounts in it, so it is consistent. So some of the information in the economic development strategy will overlap with your marketing plan because they are innately tied to each other. In terms of the context of the entire area itself, one of the standards MEDC uses is a 25-minute drive. That is one of the standards. So what you see in light purple over here is a 25-minute drive from Van Buren Township that is used as a good gauge of economic activity. So we attract businesses that might choose to go anywhere in this region towards ourselves. So that is sort of the context setting of this map. So ESRI, just like SEMCOG, there is another software. This is Environmental Systems Research Institute. It's called ESRI. ESRI is a membership organization, and they have some really strong data and data analysis provided over there from which you can get. And they have comparative analysis using various parameters. And ESRI is actually a California-based company, but they do this analysis for municipalities all over the United States. And their data sources are just amazing. So they provide you with some context and a study, and also between SEMCOG and some of the data from ESRI, we also have population, race. It is very important when you're talking about economic development strategy, you need to know what your population is composed of. In terms of housing, we used the data from ESRI's Business Analyst 2022 because that seemed to be the latest and greatest. So that is where the data is. It goes all the way from the year 2000 to 2023, and the data says how many of the various type of housing units we had. So how many housing units were built, I'm guessing,
I
or
wasn't
we
really
had.
sure what that graph, what that data file was showing me. There are an awful lot of zeros in some of those columns.
Two-family, I know nothing has been built because we did have a study that showed in the last 23 years, really no two-family dwellings. Once again, the missing
It's
middle.
it's constructed, the last sentence of the second paragraph.
Yeah, only 3 new multiple-family units were constructed.
So that just kind of tells me that just means.
This is the construction. I'm guessing ESRI has like the permit information of what was built or what was issued. I had Mara, my colleague who worked on it. She is the ESRI specialist, so she pulled and compiled together this data. So I should ask her more about this in terms of
Definition of what the chart means, too.
put it as a footnote over here saying
Yeah.
it's a summary of, yes, instead of searching through the paragraph, maybe that will be more helpful.
Through the chair, I could try to, what I think, and we can, of course, verify, but the paragraph to the left of the chart does say SEMCOG data on building permits, C figure shows that most of it. So this is SEMCOG data, which is generated from reports on a monthly basis by our department. Generally, there may be some data gaps or errors, and we'll check those, but this should be fairly accurate based on reporting from the Van Buren Township Building Department. I have a pretty good sense of the single-family detached dwelling numbers, and those look pretty accurate for 20 through 22. What may have happened, some of this may have been generated midway through 23, and there may be some shortfalls there. So we'll double check all these, but I believe this is right from SEMCOG in the case of this chart.
Yeah, the data jumps between SEMCOG, I think, for the permit numbers, because the township's permit updates are tied into SEMCOG, so that is giving the permit numbers, and the value of the median housing stock is coming from ESRI. So it's using the latest, like Dan said, maybe jumping from 2023 to 2024. We'll make sure that nothing got dropped in the middle. So one of the policy ideas that came out based on the data is to, once again, invest in missing middle housing and support renters. There was a recent article in one of the major planning magazines that said America is in a housing crisis. But I guess pretty much if you go to any major newspaper, it is, because the cost of housing has gone up so much that homeownership has now become even more of an elusive reach for many families that are just starting out. So they're trying to rent, but now rents are also getting so high that it's starting to get out of reach. I mean, the rents are pretty ridiculous in some of the newer condos, and there's even one-bedroom, two-bedroom apartments, that newer ones that are being built. The rent is just what you could easily pay a mortgage for is now the rent for a small one or two-bedroom apartment. So that is where this data is focusing on, giving what the policy idea might be. There is also a summation of what the income and education is in the township. It says majority of the households between the township earn higher than 50,000 a year, which is well above poverty level. But on the con side, it says about 11% of households in the township are still believed to be living in poverty. So we do have some of that, which is why we still, Wayne County's housing rehab, that funding, we are still within that because a small portion of our population does fall within their low income to very low income categories. The comparison was also done in terms of education, and it says while there is significant amount of population is educated, higher education in terms of graduate degrees, a fewer percentage of the population actually has the higher level of education. Those levels of education get jobs that pay at higher levels. That's how it ties in. In terms of workforce, because of all the businesses, all the industries we have on Ecos Road, on Haggerty Road, in that whole corridor, we have a very strong supply of both white and blue-collar jobs. We have a lot of jobs available compared to many of the communities. The highest unemployment, surprisingly, was between 15 and 24-year-olds. So those are where, like, maybe the newer jobs that we are creating can keep these younger people in the community, either encourage more education or try to get jobs into the community that will help provide them with some opportunities for jobs. And some of the outreach can be done with the local high schools also. We have a pretty strong job market over here between, you have Ford Motor Company, you have Dearborn, and then you have Ann Arbor has got several companies. You are in the Aerotropolis region. There are a lot of manufacturing facilities here. So the opportunities for jobs are still there. We just need to see how we can attract those towards the township itself. There is in Esri's ARC GIS Business Analyst, there is a mapping tool that allows you to sort of select smarter site selection, market planning. This is called tapestry segmentation. I found it very interesting when I looked at it. It basically divides the demographics and a community if you're looking into different kind of tapestry fragments. And the top three tapestry market segments for the township are Bright Young Professionals, Down the Road, and Middleburg. And these are general terminologies that tapestry's segmentation uses all across, but each one of them are described. When we say we want to attract bright young professionals, the profile of a bright young professionals is this. They have retirement savings, but they also have student loans. They own newer electronic devices. They use social media often. They do spend their leisure time at bars, clubs, restaurants. They like spending their money over there. They enjoy variety of sports, outdoor recreational amenities. They are physically fit generation, and they also eat out a lot. So that is the young professional tapestry segment. That's what Esri considers. Then we have two other segments that it believes the township can be divided into. One is considered as down the road. These are mostly, they're talking about our general middle class as we would describe them. Stable home, they have purchased a vehicle, a used vehicle. They do stay connected on the internet, but they are not as into technology and going out as often. There is also some cooking involved at home. They visit these general family stores. They are the ones who visit the Walmarts, the Big Lots, the Walgreens, and all of these stores. They are the ones who support the basic middle-level retail entities. And then we have Middleburg neighborhoods. These are the population that is described in a certain way. These are residents in traditional family-oriented consumers. They are considered as more country than rock and roll. This is exactly Esri's description of them. They are thrifty but willing to carry some debt and are already investing in their futures. They prefer to buy American and travel in the US. This market is younger, but it's growing in size and assets. And that's how they describe Middleburg. So you have young professionals, you have down the road, and then you have Middleburg, somewhere in the middle. So it believes that Esri's data analysis, business data analyst, categorizes the township into these three tapestry segments. When we compare ourselves to the top tapestry market segments in a 25-minute area, we are looking at traditional living. We are looking at the classifications are traditional living. These are basically low-density settled neighborhoods, which is standard. It describes what kind of people live in these. Then you have the Rust Belt traditions. These are basically mix of married couple families and singles who live in older kind of developments, what their net worth is, and what describes their eating, spending, and living habits. It's a revelation on how they are actually categorized. It made for very interesting reading. And then the third category they call is heartland communities. These are well settled, these are in semi-rural, semi-retired. These are mostly homeowners. They fully own their homes. They're older. Many of them have completely paid off their mortgage. Their children, they're either empty nesters, their children have moved away, but they still are very active in their community. They prefer a slower pace of life, not the hectic, about as on the other end of the spectrum as the young professionals who like to go to bars. They probably prefer a quieter lifestyle. So this is the tapestry segmentation. The way the tapestry segmentation helps is when you're looking at economic development strategies and you're looking for how to attract the necessary dollars, you need to know which kind of demographics you're trying to appeal to or which type of demographics you're trying to attract. So by segmenting the township and knowing what the township's essential resident groups or population groups in which categories they fall, you can correspondingly decide what you want to invest in and what kind of funding you want to attract. So another one is the spending potential index. So the economic development strategy does a deep dive into all the economics with a lot of terminologies which are micro and macroeconomics related. So once again, it says that the township could provide more consumer options for all market categories. It says we still have a lot of consumer spending going on over here. So in terms of that, it is good. But the consumer spending is still less than the national average in all categories, according to the data. So for the economy to grow, we encourage spending. That's how, because when money is spent in the local businesses, it is spent at the local retail businesses, the money still circulates in the community. Yes, Commissioner Paul.
Do you know if that is captured by Belleville, like Belleville proper, or looking at the cons, the 10% that is spent less the national average, and it says that there's some market leakage.
Mm-hmm.
Is any of that leakage in Belleville?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Ms. Krishnan, is the, oh, it's gotta be.
It's gotta be. We don't have enough to support our population, so they must go elsewhere.
Right.
And our past history is an indication of what these results are now.
Right. I'm just thinking in terms of like, I guess, I know this is kind of what we're talking about. Belleville gets looped in with Van Buren. So in a way that is still home. Whereas if they're taking their money to Canton or, Romulus, it's not as connected to the community. And that would be the.
Ms. Krishnan, is
Sorry.
this section of the report, is this auto-generated by Esri? Or was this kind of massaged, or is this basically you type in a zip code and Esri spits out a report? What am I looking at?
We put the data into Esri based upon the location of the township and its basic demographics, and Esri generates the report for you to tell
Okay.
you what its analysis is.
So this is the Esri analysis of the pros
Yes.
and cons, not
Yes.
necessarily McKenna's or Director Powers or.
No.
I
No.
understand. Okay.
Esri does based upon multiple data parameters. It puts it all together and it does the business analysis for you. And at this time, it believes like most of the money that is going out of the community rather than being invested here, being spent elsewhere, is in healthcare and entertainment. In terms of entertainment, movie theaters, bowling alleys, what else would you have? Yeah, I mean, in terms of clubs, bars, people do spend money out, or like you have places such as, what is that? You get locked in a room, escape room, those kind of things. Those are all entertainment venues in which young people go to quite often. Those kind of entertainment options are very limited. And that was the same kind of data that came even for Canton Township, surprisingly. Doesn't have. I mean, you have movie theaters, you have bowling alleys, and nothing else. So more amount of indoor recreation amenities also need to be provided, and that's where a lot of money is going out of the community. And same with healthcare, which cannot be helped because the bigger hospitals are all either in Ypsilanti or, Dearborn, Ann Arbor. You have St. Joseph Mercy. None of the hubs are over here. So that money cannot be avoided when it goes to healthcare. But we are not so far away that we cannot provide satellite offices like, for say, the University of Michigan has its satellite facility in Van Buren Township or something like that.
I guess to reiterate Commissioner Paul's point, this is computer generated. This doesn't have the local knowledge to say, hey, there's market leakage, but it's all leaking into Belleville.
Yeah.
It really is just a program that is run, and it's analyzing the statistics and printing out a
Correct.
canned analysis, an expert system, right? Is that what they call those? Yeah, expert systems. I hesitate to say an AI, but an expert system. Got it.
Through the chair, I just want to bring up our survey that was conducted for the master plan a few years ago. And when asked, where do people go? They said that from our community, where do they go? They go to Canton, Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor to eat because they felt like there was no place to eat here. To your point, the movie theater, yes, they went to Canton, Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor to see a movie because we don't have it here. So to ask you another clarifying question, so I just wanted to add that, Commissioner Jar, to the data, is that is data from our residents. I can't remember, but we had a huge impact, or I should say results, participation in that.
Yeah, I believe it's corroborated, absolutely. I mean, it rings true, but it was computer generated.
You're correct, Commissioner Atchison. Even when we had the community engagement session, many of the posts said, we don't have entertainment options here, which is why when the Lakewood Shopping Plaza was identified, that's a good size site to provide that kind of entertainment options and venue where the money can stay within the community. To have like a Dave and Buster's or a Top Golf or any one of those kind of entertainment venues where people don't have to spend their money in Canton or head out to Ann Arbor or something. That's a good way of keeping dollars here and attracting businesses. We can actively market ourselves to groups like that and say, hey, here we have a site that is prime for redevelopment. This would work for you. And typically businesses will come to a community where they believe they can actually work with the community towards. That is not to say that they will not have to follow the rules or bring high quality architecture or something, but they know we will be an active partner with them in the process of trying to get them.
Through the chair, I think this line of questioning is good, and I want to go back to Commissioner Paul's original question with grabbing Belleville in this analysis. I believe that a lot of the analysis you're looking at with these tapestries actually do go back to the 25-minute context that kind of started this ESRI discussion. So there's some broad research done for that entire market area. A lot of it is reflective of the township, but it is not as granular as what you would get if there is a localized specific marketing plan or a market study for Van Buren Township, which this document is not intended to be. It's just intended to be more broad analysis of area needs and trends. I think there's kind of a disclaimer in there as well about that on page one of these.
So when
pages.
MEDC requires us to do,
Thank you, yes.
when MEDC requires us to do an RRC certification study for marketing, they want the large picture. They don't want you to go so granular that you're actually picking apart the data for every small, because that they leave up to the individual community. If you want to deep dive into any aspect and do it, MEDC wants to know that for you to be certified as a redevelopment ready community, you actually have the larger picture clearly in mind. You have a larger marketing plan. You have a larger economic development plan. And when you market that, we are not talking about marketing ourselves only to somebody who is in the local metro area or a business. We are talking about probably attracting businesses from the other parts of the state or from other states in the United States. Say some new light industrial manufacturer is trying to set up in Ohio. If we are trying to attract them, we can say, hey, we have 440 over here. Even if it's got wetlands, we can. So they would like to know the larger picture. What kind of demographic area are we at? What is the approximate spending patterns over here? If we come here, will we get young skilled workers or unskilled workers? Would there be places for them to stay? So they want a larger picture that they can see in terms of the community showing itself that it's ready, not just for the smaller region, they're looking at the bigger area, regional and national context.
Is
So-
it safe to say that Esri provides a common lens for people in other parts of the country to zoom in on an area and look at, like, Esri's a tool that's used nationally, right? Yes. So an Esri report for our 25-minute area is going to be comparable to the same Esri report for some other 25-minute area. The computer's going to do it the same way, and it's going to call out the pros and cons so it's comparable.
Yes, depending upon whatever the individual. So the Esri report that is generated for Van Buren is not going to be the same as a Esri report generated for a neighborhood in Grand Rapids, say Kentwood in Grand Rapids area. That Esri report will take into account the spending patterns, the proximity, the regional context of it, its proximity to Grand Rapids, proximity to Holland. So Esri is an advanced business analyst solution. Yes, it is a computer. It's a computer that is doing it, but a computer that is pulling from 100 different sources of data and putting together its analysis. It's not at a human scale where we know. It's like a traffic engineer doing a report saying 20 more trips are going to be generated. It's not going to create any problem. But you driving on the road know, hey, I'm already waiting 2 minutes at the traffic light every single day, and I'm going to be waiting 4 minutes now. But that's not what the traffic engineer's data analysis shows. So somewhat situation like that. So this is, once again, a comparative table. This is just all data, and it's got total spent, average spent. When it talks about total spent, expenditures are shown by broad budget categories. So, and consumer spending is not equal to the business revenue. And these are annual figures. When you say total and average amount spent per household, it represents the annual figures. And it says the potential spending, the spending potential index represents the amount that is spent in the area relative to a national average of 100. So that's what it is comparing it to. It's using a baseline of 100 and comparing it. So when we are talking about economic development, quite often people come and say, I want to bring a business here, but we need help to get this whole thing started. What kind of tools do we have available financially? We can talk about the brownfield tax increment financing. That is always important when you have a contaminated site. Contaminated site cleanups are very expensive. And the state does provide money in order for cleanup of these sites and big grants. Yes,
Might
Commissioner.
want to check the last sentence in number 4.
Where am I?
Says communities containing and near Willow Run and metro airports. What is it containing?
Well, we are containing Willow Run.
Near Metro.
Projects may also be eligible.
I-
That just seems
I found one more clerical thing too.
Although I guess
reads weird.
we contain a portion of Willow Run. We could just say.
Wordsmithing, okay,
But that-
containing,
Yeah, that's a little wordsmith.
wordsmithing, okay. The
So-
word containing to be used. Commissioner Paul, you also had a,
Yeah, the last sentence in point 1, it says, Department of Environmental Quality, that is now Eagle.
oh yeah, MDEQ is no longer there. It is Great Lakes Energy, confusing acronym.
Energy,
but
Great Lakes, and Environment.
yes. MDEQ was so easy, but we shall fix that. Thank you. So we have the industrial facility tax abatement, that would be local. We have, of course, the DDA stiff. We have an industrial facility tax. I'm not familiar with those, but those are something that are available through the Erythropolis. I'm not too familiar with this. We have the LDFA authority, I believe, in the township. We also have the LDFA for the Detroit region Erythropolis. Then we have Michigan Community Revitalization Program, which is quite interesting because that is a state program for sites with potential for rehabilitation and redevelopment of brownfield and historic sites located in traditional downtowns and high-impact corridors. So that would be one of the things. We have public spaces and community places, and finally, site strategic readiness program. So the state has a lot of, earlier it used to be just TIF districts or LDFA districts, the DDA captures, but now we have a lot more different financial sources of economic, providing economic incentives. So when we look at the economic development map, this is basically, once again, showing the township, its removing the city of Belleville in there. It's showing where the DDA is in the purple in the middle, and then it's showing where we have the LDFA district, and then the Erythropolis is in the middle. I think the line of the Erythropolis is superimposed, so. And that area is marked as opportunity zone. Dan, you will be able to clarify better what would specify the opportunity zone. How is the opportunity zone determined?
So
That
the
was-
opportunity zone is an aspect of the 2017 tax cut legislation. It allows for tax cuts to capital investment in lower income areas. And so it's a place where there's some incentive to, in theory, to invest in lower income areas on capital savings and capital gains taxes. So that's, these are designated nationally at a federal level across the country.
So the third aspect of the economic development strategy was community engagement, and this is where we had, during the stakeholder workshop of 2023, the results of it were objectives for defining economic development. So we summarized all what the results of that community engagement session were based upon all of the little Post-its and the little dots that were placed on the various boards. And they basically said, what would be your priority goal? Which is your number one goal? Which is your number two goal? So on and so forth. And that is the summary data that is being provided. Objectives of what to keep in Van Buren Township. What should we continue to keep over there? What do we need to fix? Of course, fixing was roads, drainage, infrastructure, and high retail vacancy. Those three popped up as the three main things to fix. What do we want to aspire for? Once again, entertainment businesses. So there were some very, very clear outcomes of, I'm just going to close this. There were some very, very clear outcomes of the community engagement session in terms of what people wanted to see and what they thought more needs to be done over here, from all of the stakeholders. So it's a summary in terms of what to keep in Van Buren, continue to improve schools. The people took pride in the fact that they're, okay, don't install update, that's okay. And maintain a strong manufacturing employment sector, maintain strong public safety and municipal services, and maintain Belleville Lake as a clean and high-quality natural resource.
Krishnan?
Yes.
The table has got community engagement results on the one side, and then it's got the local goals with some of them checked off like a bingo card.
Yes.
I think the local goals aren't defined yet in this document. I don't think they get defined until the next chapter. Is this showing me like goal, continue to improve schools, tends to meet local goal number 4?
Yes, that's what, it's tying in with something behind, because of the structure in which it is ordered, it ties in later, but this is sort of a summary of the public engagement.
Yeah, right, but the goals themselves, like what is goal number 4, that doesn't get described until the next chapter.
Correct.
So as a suggestion, it might be a good idea to move the definitions of the goals further ahead so that when we look at this table, we understand that there is a goal 4, and goal 4 is, wait a minute, I got it, support residents and build homes. It would be good if it was defined first. I really had a struggle when I was doing a linear read through because I didn't understand what the goals were.
Maybe we move this behind a little bit to blend it in.
Or at
well
least
with
list the
other
goals
chapter.
first so that it's,
Okay.
so that it's clear.
Will do, will do. When we were identifying also the opportunities, there were 3 stations that helped Van Buren identify economic development opportunities. And the types of economic development projects that received 8 votes or higher were sidewalks. Sidewalks are always a priority in every community. Utility improvement, paved road and bridge improvements, areas, Belleville Road and Tyler Road, the Ford land or 181 parcel. Updating zoning ordinance once again for missing middle. This ties up once again to when you are implementing a strategy, you might have to fix some portions of your ordinance and your rules in order to be able to support your goals. If you have goals and objectives, but your ordinance does not support them, then you're tying yourself down. Where to prioritize. So where to prioritize economic development projects. And these were the areas that were identified in those 3 boards. Now, we spoke about priority redevelopment site. We spoke about the first 3. The other 3 sites that were also identified as redevelopment sites were the Racer Trust property. That's on E-Course, close to Villoran Airport. The property is pretty challenged because it is literally on the flight path. There is not much you can put in. It's got extreme height restrictions of what you can build, which is why many times the township has been approached by potential developers for the property, and then they realize what the challenges are and they back off. But that is still something that we would like to redevelop. Grace Lake. Grace Lake is developed on the north side of Grace Lake. We have the former Visteon GE facilities there, but we also have other areas around Grace Lake that are still potential for development, redevelopment. And finally, the Willow Run. There is, we just put in an image of how people wrote down their entertainment options. Topgolf featured again. So there was a map here, maybe it comes later. It showed the various properties that are marked over here, all 6 of these. When we come to local and regional goals, like you said, Commissioner Jar, we will try to move this local and regional goals and then put all the summary of the public engagement somewhere in here, mix and match. So
Yeah, maybe instead of listing the columns as goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, maybe you give the name of the goal, marketing, redevelopment.
yeah, maybe that might be good.
Might be easier to read.
That's a good idea. We shall do that. We shall do that. We will just put the goal in so that they can. So the goals were market Van Buren Township, redevelop the priority sites, retain and expand businesses. Some of these do overlap with the marketing plan because after all, if you're doing economic development activity, you are going to tie it. Lead industrial development and growth, which I think we are doing really well. Preserve and expand the natural resources, parks and recreation, and maintain quality public services and infrastructure. So those were the 8 goals that were identified and the various steps on how to do it. Once again, we are referring to One Energy, the jobs created and the investment. We will double check these numbers again. We are referencing it for the 3rd time. So the reason why we refer to One Circle in these is One Circle was an MEDC supported project. And this RRC certification works towards that future kind of support. If you're an RRC certified community, in the future, if any industry wants to move into the state of Michigan or something, MEDC can direct saying, hey, there is land available. How many acres is this company looking for? That much acreage is available in Van Buren Township. It's an RRC certified community. When we look at the regional goals, we have the Detroit region, Erythropolis, and then we have the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Once again, we are seeing which entity can help us achieve each one of these goals. So those, in terms of economic development incentives that can be provided towards accomplishing this, Detroit Erythropolis can help us. So the goals probably will be replaced with the subheading or maybe goal and then also the subheading written under it.
Yeah, something like
should help clean it up. Yes, here we come to the priority redevelopment sites. Once again, it is a total summary, not just of the first 3. It's also, the first 3 were identified as the high priority site, the Grace Lake, Willow Run Airport. Some areas of Willow Run Airport have potential contamination, which is to be expected for all the years of its industrial use. And then we have the Racer Trust property. These 3 are considered medium priority development sites, and the low priority redevelopment sites were a site on the west side, west of Hull and Martinsville Road intersection and commercial property along Sumter Road. So this is sort of a map that shows you where all the redevelopment sites are located. 1, 2, 3 being high priority, 4, 5, 6 being medium priority, 7 and 8 being lower priority. Once again, this is a summary of each one of those 3 parcels. As in the case of the marketing plan, we do have an action plan that is associated with the economic development strategy also. And once again, the reason for some overlap in data between the marketing plan and the economic development is they stand as 2 independent components of a plan. So we don't want somebody to review the economic development plan to say, oh, go and look at the marketing strategy plan. We wanted each to be a complete document by itself so that references don't need to go into another document. So there are 2 different action plans that are used in this project, one that is oriented around steps and a plan that is oriented around objectives. Once again, we have prioritized them as A, B, C, and then we have written who the lead or the support will be. We have created acronyms for it so we don't have to spell it out each time. And goal, you have the steps in which to achieve that goal. Who will be the lead in helping you do it? Yes.
Just real quick, like off the front, so we have ABC under priority and time frame legend. There's also an A and a C for lead in support legend.
Uh-huh.
Just, I don't know if there's gonna be, like, looking forward, if there's position or like spots where they would both be like featured, but maybe communications department, we can maybe do CD, and assessing department, we could do AD or something like that,
I don't
just so
think
that
they
they're.
overlap, but yes, in case
Okay.
somebody gets a confusion, we can always do communication as comm or something like that.
Good feedback.
Okay,
Yeah,
we can do it. Typically, they will not overlap because when we say lead, we are referring to, but in case somebody doesn't pay attention to the legend, they might get thrown off. We can fix that. So we are talking about the steps, how the steps can be done, and the possible time frame in which it can be done, and the indicator that the township has completed the task, and these are the leads that are going to be helping with it or getting the action plan going. So once with the lead who has to do the work, we engage in, these are our community partners who are part of the economic development strategy plan itself, and then we have an indicator that is part of the action plan to say whether we have done this or not. Now, the next plan, when we have the objectives and the specific projects, if you look at the previous one, I will go back to it. This is the goal is just read, yes, sorry.
Ask a quick question. When you refer to the Downtown Development Authority's director, is that Belleville?
There's a downtown development authority in Van Buren Township.
Okay. If in downtown. So we're considering downtown Belleville Road?
Yes, our DDA boundaries extend. Actually, there was a map over here. Do I have the map? I can show you. Yeah, this is the DDA boundary. This purple is the DDA boundary. It extends all the way from up there on the east side on Van Born, then it picks up around Ecos Road, goes all the way down till just south of I-94. That's where we reviewed the Zippy Auto. Zippy Auto was kind of the southern boundary of our
Commissioner, what you're trying to express, I think, is that words "if in downtown" probably should say "if project falls under the auspice of the Downtown Development Agency." If it's in the DDA's purview, not just in downtown. Is that what you mean? Maybe it's not what he means. I don't know what he means.
Is downtown the B-Rod?
I'm cleared. I understand.
I didn't understand.
Mostly.
all of it.
I could try to give some overview. So the Downtown Development Authority does overlap largely with what we've identified as our Belleville Road Overlay District. There's a slight offset because B-Rod is only properties that either front Belleville Road or are within a few hundred feet of Belleville Road. The DDA's boundaries go a little broader because they capture some of the land on the service drives as well. But the DDA is more of a financing mechanism and an authority that brings in a different means of financing public improvements and having projects congeal around that corridor. The B-Rod is more of a zoning tool that you can use to, that we do use to have different architectural landscaping standards in roughly the same area. So both are tools or authorities to help promote kind of a downtown, non-traditional downtown district for the township.
Through the chair, I have a question. We talk about the Van Buren Township Community Partners. Can you give me how are they partners?
We are part of the Detroit Region Aerotropolis, which actually actively markets some of our properties. Like Detroit Aerotropolis is in the process of trying and purchasing 440 and 390 to have investment in it. Waste management is an integral part of the township. We have an agreement with Waste Management for some services. GrowthWorks is an organization, state of Michigan organization that helps actually find jobs, placement in the community. And US Ecology is a company that reviews all sites in these areas for contamination. If you have to do brownfield redevelopment, that is one of the companies that you would depend on in order to do it. So once again, Conference of Western Maine, these are all organizations that are essentially focused on the Detroit metro area or in the Tri-County area when you're talking about Wayne, Washtenaw, and Oakland County, trying and focusing and bringing economic development to these areas. So they are resources that we can lean on. So when we go to action plan with objectives and this, the first goal would be market Van Buren Township. Well, how are we going to do that? With objects and projects, we have maintain graphic design, some of it ties in with the marketing plan once again. And here we have lead, support, priority, time, and indicators. This is where what Commissioner Paul said, we have lead as C, and then in case priority is also C. So in case somebody gets confused, we'll probably change one to com, so communication, and we will change A also so that you will understand it. So the first goal would be to market Van Buren Township, and I think the numbering is off over here. Goal 3 is to retain and expand business. That has got several objectives under it. It's a big goal with multiple steps underneath it.
Goal 2 is AWOL.
Yeah, goal 2. I think the numbering is off, which is what I noticed. I saw goal 1 and I saw goal 2 missing. Is it there in your document, or is the numbering off over here? I'm guessing the
I thought the
numbering
numbering was, I didn't see a goal 2, I just thought.
Okay,
it was-
I think the
was off.
numbering got off a little bit. I will have that fixed. The goal 3 would be support residents and build homes, and how this would be done. How would we encourage it? Once again, we tie that back into missing middle housing, improve quality of existing housing stock. And one good thing that's happening is many of our subdivisions that were built in, that were started or approved in the early 2000s or mid 2000s that were never completed are getting towards completion. Cobblestone Creek, Infinity Homes is building a lot. Country Walk, we are getting finished. So all the homes and subdivisions that were supposed to be built out and never got built out when we had the housing market crash, all those are getting built out now, which is good because it completes neighborhoods instead of leaving them incomplete. Goal 4 would be design and develop attractive commercial corridors, and that would be done by providing more entertainment, dining, and nightlife options, broad range of housing types so people can live and go to it, and that ties back in. So I will check the numbering over here to make sure that we are not off. The next goal would be to design and develop attractive, the same. Goal 4 it's carried forward in this. Goal 5 is lead industrial development and growth. And I think we are already on our way with it, with Ashley Crossroads building, with FedEx occupying a building, and now we have Our Next Energy, and the new one being DSV Logistics, which is a Danish logistics company, taking a big chunk of building 11 and having more spec buildings to attract more of these larger scale light manufacturing uses. We are well on our way to doing that. And then we have best practices for access management, and these are in general tied to our zoning ordinance regulations itself. If need be, we will revisit our zoning ordinance to make any necessary adjustments that need to be done in order to align with it. So this is sort of an example from industrial design guidelines for the city of Detroit about how they believe large-scale industrial facilities should be designed in order for it to fit into a neighborhood and be an integral part of the community itself, while taking advantage of whatever resources are next to it. In this case, they are showing a railroad going in the rear of the property itself. This is just sort of a guiding principle. The objectives continue with lead in industrial growth and development. And then the next goal will be to preserve and expand natural resources, parks, and recreation. And I think we have a really good program in this, and we have made significant progress towards already accomplishing this in many. Our Parks and Rec Plan and Parks and Rec Department and Community Facilities Department has done a great job of actually trying to make us attractive in the map. And finally, maintaining quality of public services and infrastructure, improving utilities, roads, municipal and public services. We have a strong police and fire department, and those are very important contributors towards people's quality of life in a community and being able to attract new residents too. As in the case of the marketing plan, we have tracking progress over here. This has also got an annual update, but this too can have a quarterly update, as was previously suggested. We can do a quarterly update, and it says during each annual meeting, analyze the goals. Instead of annual meeting, you can have an update quarterly and have one annual meeting when maybe the board and the planning commission can together go over it and say, okay, here we made progress as anticipated, here we did not, what can we do in order to do this? So you can work towards it. There is no set timeline from MEDC saying you must do certain tasks within a certain, but it is always good to be proactive and try to move towards accomplishing those goals. And so this is a track list, basically a summary of what we just discussed and what we went through. So it's just listing it with that extra column completed over there for us to be able to determine whether we are staying on track. That is the end of the Economic Development Strategy Plan. So between the two documents, we have for Van Buren a roadmap of how we want to, what we have, what our assets are, how we want to market ourselves, what our economic development growth goals are, what are the objectives, what are the steps we are going to take to achieve it. Being certified as a redevelopment ready community is really a big deal. It is a really big deal. And it is very impressive, and it's a matter of pride that the township has got certified for this. I do work for a lot of clients who are not RRC certified because the township has taken so many active steps towards it. All your boards, your planning commission, the board, everybody work well in sync with each other towards common goals that the township has set for itself, be it the Parks and Rec Master Plan or your Sumter Road Corridor Plan. I think the fact that we have a cohesive work environment where all different bodies and entities within the township are working with each other really helps you get towards that. And to MEDC, that matters. And getting to that point is important because that opens you up to so many other grant opportunities to get money. There are some grants that are advertised as first priority to RRC certified communities. So we will now have an opportunity to apply for those and get more money into the community. So we have taken down notes on all of your corrections. We shall make all of those corrections, tweaks, fix Yankee, double check on some data, add additional columns. Dan will make sure that I get it all in. So thank you so much. I hope you like the document. It's one of its kind, and I think it's beautifully done. It's really nice. So thank you.
You're welcome, and wow. A lot of talk from you. Is your throat sore yet?
I'm hungry.
Fantastic job. Yes.
An important point on that, we will be proud to be RRC certified once all of our steps are complete, and the adoption of this plan is one of those steps. So we're not certified yet. I would make a suggestion that I think we have clear direction from the Planning Commission. If it's acceptable to the Planning Commission, we will make the changes we've heard tonight and forward the final draft version to you before it goes to the board, but we probably won't bring this back to a Planning Commission meeting if that's favorable to the Planning Commission. If it depends on what direction you'd like to take, but.
Through the chair, I think the corrections or the adjustments that need to be made are very minor, in my opinion, that I think you can be entrusted to make those changes because they're so minor. Present it to us, and then I believe we should be recommending it then to be moved to the board for consideration.
But you're saying it should come back to us.
Just to, not to come to have a board meeting, I think if it was emailed to us.
Oh, and do it that way?
We look to see that all of the things we wanted are there, you know, an email is suffice,
Once
in my
we make
opinion.
all the edits,
We don't need to do this
Dan
again.
can email a copy
Yeah.
to all of you so you can look it over. And if you make a recommendation, the fixed copy will go before the Board of Trustees.
And we can email it and then just have a simple action at the following Planning Commission meeting to go ahead and make the motion to recommend adoption if you'd like to do it that way, without having another presentation.
I would like the chance, so you guys know how I am. I have 5 pages of wordsmithing and notes that really weren't appropriate to talk about in this wonderful presentation, right? But there are some details that I want to have clear in my mind. I'd like to interact with staff and our consultant on the document, and definitely look at the changes as they're edited before we forwarded on to the board.
Right.
So I think, if we could have a chance, I could send you written feedback. If any of us have written feedback about the wordsmithing, or then we could have you do another edit and bring it back, not with the full presentation of, it was a wonderful presentation, I was wrapped for 2 hours. But if
Yes.
we went,
Very
if we
good.
went on a much smaller presentation that just went over these are the minor changes that we applied and we think it's really good, then I'd feel very good about recommending this up to the township board at the next planning commission meeting.
I would agree with that because I think I mean, we can all look it over when you get it forwarded, but it still has to come back to the planning commission for the motion to send it to the board. So it wouldn't hurt to have what you called for.
May I request you not set it for the next meeting? 4th of July weekend is coming up, and I'm not going to be able to fix it because the graphics director will have to fix it. If I had to fix it, I could, but she does graphics for every client that McKenna owns, so.
Without knowing what the feedback that we send you is, it would be very difficult to commit to the next meeting. That's very understandable,
We'll work as
considering the
quickly as
holiday.
we can and
Yeah.
get it back to you.
What other steps are there after this hits the board? Is that the final step before we are given,
Yes, RRC certification, yes.
Yeah, and we send
Okay.
it, then the board submits it, and then we'll get the certification.
Yeah, we've had a very fluid exchange with MEDC. They have a interactive way that we update them on our steps that we've completed for the RRC certification. These are the last 2 steps on our interactive website board that we work with them on. So, yep, we'll just let them know when it's done and send them probably the adoption resolution or motion record from the board meeting and let them know to look at the plan.
We did email them, I did email our MEDC representative a copy of the draft plan, and she found it acceptable. She said it was good.
okay,
Excellent.
We'll just tweak it, but they like the structure. It includes all the components that MEDC expects to be there in an RRC plan, so we are good from their standpoint.
Feel good with some changes presented that we can make a motion in the affirmative as soon as the changes are in. I would feel that way anyway.
yeah, I
Yeah, I agree.
concur.
So direction to staff would be to collect from the commissioners any remaining written changes, get on the phone to clarify whatever we need to do the edits, present the changes in the final document at the next available meeting that lines up with the ability to get the changes done. And does that seem?
Yes.
Yes, if you have notes already written or typed up, just feel free to send those right in.
Absolutely.
You probably haven't saved an email, I would assume, Mr. Jar.
I'm a typer.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need a formal motion on that, do we?
No. I would think we just have to give you direction is all. Okay? Then next, do we have any new or information, general discussion, updates?
I know there will be a planning commission meeting on July 10th. There's a public hearing scheduled for a gas station and convenience store and restaurant site at the southwest corner of Ecorse and Haggerty Road. It involves a Sheets, and so that's one of the that's the public hearing item for that agenda, and there will be some other actions on that agenda. So in the meantime, have a happy Independence Day holiday.
And you as well, and to the community as well, be safe. It's fireworks season. Do we have anything else? Anybody else?
Just want to reiterate, that's a long presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to
Yes.
explain that document. I didn't mean it ironically when I said I was wrapped for 2 hours. It's very interesting to me, and you did a wonderful job presenting it. Thanks for your hard work.
This is my 3rd straight night meeting. I've been at night meetings till 10 p.m. every single night this week, so I was hoping I wouldn't blunder through it, so thank you.
You came across, I think you covered it all.
Nice job.
An effort that you put in for
Absolutely.
that.
Thank you, Vidya and Mara, who worked on this.
Anything else from anybody? Then I'm willing to entertain that famous last motion of the night, adjournment.
Through the chair. I move that we adjourn for the evening.
Support.
I got a motion and support for adjournment of the evening. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are done.